Hey guys, just checking if Facebook is live, and it is. Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy M.K.S here, back with another video, and welcome to part 2 of Dyslexic and Triple Black troubleshooters. And as I mentioned before, I'm using the term troubleshooters a bit loosely. I'm putting it in brackets, sorry, speech marks, a big one, because I'm using the term a bit loosely. Like, by troubleshooters, I mean problem solvers. I think normally the term means something more specific, but I'm saying like shooting down trouble, as in problem solving. So obviously the world has many problems. As I said in part 1, some say if you solve problems you get rich as heck, or whatever, if you wanted to. I mean, most of my money I would give away and all that kind of thing, but I think like problems like, there's problems in the world also like climate change / global warming, illnesses, diseases, natural disasters. Unfortunately, I suppose climate change and natural disasters, climate change / global warming and natural disasters, I suppose, are all linked. In fact, I don't really know the difference between climate change and global. I suppose that's the same thing, climate change / global warming, but they link to, supposedly linked to natural disasters. I know there's conspiracy theories about it and all that kind of thing, but yeah, illness and disease, I suppose they're probably all sort of connected, but they're all problems as well. They're connected at least in that way. So with dyslexic problem solving, for instance, they could be solved. I mean, there's more chance they could be solved through different ways of thinking, and also with the black people uniting together, they could support each other to solve problems they face and that kind of thing, I guess. So sorry, try to drink my tea before it gets cold as well. Sorry about that, but yeah, so sorry, just trying to remember my thoughts. I know I've been mentioning that I hope these both record as well as possible. I've been mentioning how I'd love to record in different places, as in like all the possible video sharing platforms, so that there's a copy of these videos at least somewhere, hopefully at least one copy, preferably maybe more. So but the main thing is, I suppose, I hope to spread the message out there. And I call them dyslexia awareness, and I add the and empowerment month. The theme for this year is so I put empowerment month and empowerment in brackets, sorry. But the theme for this year is something about raise your voice or something. So it's about amplifying voice or something like that for the dyslexic community. So it's about saying, I'm dyslexic and I'm not ashamed to be dyslexic. I might even be proud to be. Hopefully not arrogant, obviously, but I hope to inspire others, that kind of thing. I think that's the theme. I can't remember what the theme for Black empowerment is. I think it could, for Black History, as I call it, Black History, and I add in brackets and empowerment month. But I think the theme is around reclaiming narratives, like telling their own stories. I could be wrong. That could be last year's theme. I'm not sure. But yeah, please let me know if anything you know about either of those things, dyslexia and or the Black community, and or anything you know about dyslexia awareness and or Black history as well. That would be about these months. But anyway, one thing I want to say before I crack on to the second part of this, sorry, I know I'm waffling away again, as per usual. I was saying I went mad on the last one. I know I'm mad already, but I went mad by taking about half an hour to get to the point, so sorry for that one. But I would love to. I saw quite a few of my friends online with dyslexia, and some of them Black as well, and I wanted to talk to them about my idea about how I hope to interview people one-to-one and have street interviews and have Zoom chats and these sorts of things I have, and any ideas I have around that, and whether they'd be interested, and I would love to interview as many dyslexic and or Black people respectively as possible, about their stories, positive, negative, or indifferent, or whatever they may be, from different age groups perhaps as well, on Zoom and that kind of thing, and to empower them as much as anything else. So I know for me it'd be a bit of fun. I might feel good doing so. It's just a project idea of mine. I love to put in practice, which I normally like to do with my ideas if I can. But for them, it would be more a chance to tell their story, maybe even sell products or promote their businesses or all sorts of different projects and ventures and that kind of thing. So I just want to say that before I get onto this, I'm behind schedule. So I'm going to I would love to keep these down to about 30 seconds to a minute, and it's already 5 minutes. So I'm going to crack on with points number 11 to 20. I think that covers everything for the intro. So here goes. So number 11, I was thinking recently about, I saw a few videos from South Africa, from Proudly South African, and another channel to do with South Africa. I can't quite remember what it was. And I talked recently about how I'd love to support South Africa and love for black people and even POC generally to support South Africa, and for them to host many different events. But I was thinking about dyslexia and how we connect things together, dyslexics. Sometimes that gets me into trouble because people think I'm going off topic, whereas to me, I'm just connecting to things that other people wouldn't connect. Someone gave the example of Airbnb. I'm not sure if the founder is dyslexic or not, but they said an example is like most people look at that situation and not see a solution, whereas a dyslexic person can connect things together to solve problems. I don't know if I'll explain that very well, but I do want to try and get to the point as quick as I can. So that was Dean Bragonia, if I pronounce his name right, who mentioned that in one of his videos about dyslexia. But yeah, I think that the education system, so-called education, the academic system, I'm not saying it's all useless. I think there are some good things to it, but I do think it's a little bit flawed. I mean, it's very hard to make a perfect system, if anything's perfect. But I do think that the again, so-called education system, the academic system, just try and check to make sure. So I hope Facebook and YouTube record as well as possible. Because I have this strange thing, I want to get all my ideas out there and that kind of thing. If my video got, heaven forbid, I probably shouldn't preempt this or think too much about it. Touch wood, it won't happen. But if my video got cut out or something, or was only partly recorded, or whatever, I'd be a bit annoyed. But sorry, anyway, getting to a point or trying to. With the academic system, I think it is kind of an apartheid system because people learn differently, like dyslexics and people with related learning disabilities. Again, I'm trying to focus more on dyslexia, as I talked about recently. Because we learn and think differently, it doesn't fit in that system, which is like one size fits all. So I do find that a bit like an apartheid system where you're treated different because you're different. I suppose even more generally, like how black people are treated because they look different, and how dyslexics are treated because our brains work differently, I guess. I think there is some sort of commonality, and statistically funny in some ways and sadly in other ways, and in some ways negative and in other ways positive. I want to say the best of that. There are many similarities between dyslexic and so-called black people. So again, suffering discrimination, and I think we are kind of overrepresented at both the bottom and probably top end of society in many ways. But yeah, I wonder if dyslexics could use our innovation and creativity, or whatever, and that kind of thing to make up my own words, but to benefit nations like South Africa and African nations. If South Africa could host lots of different events, but I'll talk about that a bit later some other time. I realize, again, I'm way behind schedule, so I'm going to move on to number 12. I know I briefly touched on this in part one in a way, but I'd love for us to inspire each other, so we could keep each other on track and encourage each other. Like, so if we're feeling down or we're feeling downbeat, we could have each other's back. So if a dyslexic person is like feeling like giving up, another dyslexic person could say, for instance, come on, you can do it, I've got your back, and all that kind of thing, and just try to say, keep going. Some people have to say that to me as well, but we can have each other's back and being part of a network. I was thinking, like, for instance, business. I know mainly I want to think of business on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays, and startups specifically on Saturdays and Sundays, startups and SMEs and whatnot, but business more generally on Mondays and Tuesdays and Fridays, 3 days a week. And I want to think more about goal setting and politics and that kind of thing on Thursdays, like black politicians and that kind of thing, just like black politicians and lobby groups, that kind of thing. But it is kind of connected, I suppose, like goal setting and like lobbying for tax cuts, as I talk about for dyslexic and for black people, tax exemptions and that kind of thing, for instance, which would affect business, but it is very political, as you could say. Everything's sort of connected to politics. I don't mind discussing politics with people who disagree with me or whatever. In fact, I invite people to comment and say things they disagree with. It's just if they shout down my opinions, I get really frustrated. But I do try and see things from different angles, and I think dyslexic people can be good at that, I guess, being a dyslexic one as well. Um, but yeah, I was thinking that setting up a business, going into the unknown, knowing what to do, raising capital, being afraid of failure, being afraid of losing money, having the funding in the first place, being afraid of going into bad debt or whatever. Apparently, there's good and bad debt. Some people would dispute that, but and that kind of thing. I think having mentors with dyslexia, for instance, who have already been there and done that and made mistakes, so we don't have to, or things like that, could really help. So I think being part of a network, I think, could solve pretty much, hopefully, all the problems we would face in going into business. Like I say, fear of the unknown, raising capital, we'd have the money between each other, and that kind of thing. The only thing, I mean, there might be unforeseen problems I haven't really thought of, but the only other thing is, like, I think that sometimes when you have so many people, it's like too many cooks spoil the broth. Like, you can argue over things too much, whatever. So sometimes we'd have to just say, like, let's try this, or let's budget this much. If we fail or we lose it, at least we'll only lose a certain amount, and we can move on. See that as a lesson. So there is that, but I think generally speaking, being part of that group would be beneficial. But I'd love to know what dyslexics out there think, and similar for the black community again, same sort of thing. Number 13. Whilst I do want to raise the positives and strengths of dyslexia and encourage black people to unite and see what they can achieve together and prove their critics wrong too, similarly, I acknowledge and want to acknowledge some of the challenges we face. So dyslexia is kind of like a disability and a gift, a curse and a gift at the same time, a burden and a blessing in many ways, in different ways. And I suppose it partly depends on how you react to it as a dyslexic yourself. Like, you see it as a negative or do you see it as a positive? Similar with, I suppose, with being black, like you can see it as like you're a victim, or you can see it as you're going to be a victor and prove that the haters who say all these negative things about you, prove them wrong. You can either use it, like people call you thick, or they call you slow, dumb, thick, lazy, or whatever other terms they might call you, adverse terms. You could say, oh, I'm a victim, poor me, woe is me, or people hate me, or whatever. Or you could be like, excuse the expression, but screw those haters and prove them wrong. But yeah, I do want to acknowledge some of the negatives and problems as well. So I think that for point number 13. Another thing I talked about, like for Halloween, again, and I mentioned before that people think of it as pagan and even evil, or whatever. Christians think of it as that way, but I'm not sure about Muslims. I'm sure they probably are against Halloween as well. I told someone that, so there's a game one at the church, and they said, "Oh, church celebrate Halloween and all that." I was talking about Halloween, so they seem so excited about that. But I would love for dyslexics, my fellow dyslexics, and black people as well, to design things like Halloween masks, costumes, and things like that. Things about all sorts of scary, creepy, and macabre stuff. And what's that got to do with problem solving? Well, it's a pathway into a potential career, as I talked about before. Like, so you can design things really well. People might say, "Oh yeah, these dyslexics can be really good at design. They can be really creative and that kind of thing." So it's sort of raising awareness as well, and it could be even something that could be monetized and lead to potential career opportunities. Hopefully, preferably in things that you enjoy as well, which I think is worth more than money in many ways. Again, these are my personal opinions, but yeah, I want to acknowledge some of the challenges we face. But yeah, also, yeah, I love for people to make those scary, creepy, macabre sort of stuff or whatever. I had to Google what macabre meant, but I'm going to move on to point number 14. But yeah, at the same time, maybe people could make something for Halloween that's like turn something that many people see as negative and dark. Some people just see it as harmless fun. Many religious people, for instance, especially see it as negative and dark. Maybe there's a solution in that is to turn it into a positive by typing up and writing and discussing things and creating things that are about the light and love and positivity and joy and positivity and that kind of thing. Hope and that kind of thing, all those positive things basically. Yeah, I think I was thinking like a dyslexic business network, as I said, could solve the problems we face. So when I wanted to go into business when I was younger, when I was about 17 or 18, all the way through to when I was in my 30s or whatever. Unfortunately, I'm 43 now, believe it or not. I might act a lot more immature and look a lot older, but yeah, people said to me, like, you shouldn't go into business because you don't have the funding, you don't have the experience, you don't have the knowledge, information knowledge, and all that kind of thing. You don't have the work ethic and all these sorts of things. But even if you look at most jobs, you're going to have to put the work in anyway. I suppose business, they say you have to do it for longer, and you can't just go home and go to sleep and all that. And some part of me that does wonder. I know I don't have a work ethic, but I wonder with many dyslexics, like, could they be encouraged from a young age? And some develop a work ethic for being dyslexic, but I think it could solve a lot of problems being part of a network because you're part of a team that has each other's backs. I think of words that begin with T for Thursday, like technology, T, and that kind of thing. But you have each other's backs, and you could give that advice. So, for instance, dyslexics could mentor each other. It's something I want to do with dyslexics, giving our money to Shroud Court and Virgin Money, founded by dyslexics, so they could invest on our behalf and even teach some of us how to invest. In some cases, or even for those of us who don't land, we could at least just give them our money, and hopefully they'll invest on our behalf, which is another advantage, hopefully, to being dyslexic, that we can network together and support each other, and be part of a team Thursdays and team Tuesdays, but or daily anyway. But yeah, part of me thinks, like, if you support dyslexic and or black businesses in October, obviously running a business, I suppose you probably won't do it just like for 1 month. I know some businesses might be kind of seasonal, so like an ice cream parlor or an ice cream shop, ice cream van even, or whatever, only makes money normally in the summer when it's nice and warm. So I don't know what they do for the rest of the month, or the rest of the year in Britain, for instance, where it's not warm very often. But yeah, so some might be sort of seasonal, but I imagine there's daily sort of things you have to do. So I was wondering, like, thinking if I only support or only encourage businesses to support dyslexic and stroke or black people in October, like, what do they do for the other months? I suppose. I mean, it could be started in October, but I suppose they would need probably ongoing support. But yeah, being part of a network and a team, obviously, it wouldn't necessarily just work in October, but all through the year. But again, I'd love to know what other people think. And again, similar for the black community. Yeah, looking at all the problems in the world, I suppose number 13, I could have also thought about as the things I mentioned before, like global warming / climate change, natural disasters, illnesses, and all that sort of stuff, diseases and that kind of thing. How could we work together to solve those problems? Like, for instance, I suppose the first step is addressing such. I don't want to say point number 13, I forgot. I'm just thinking as well, I don't forget too much, but I was saying, for instance, African scientists could work together, or even black people around the world could work together in STEM and pass on their findings and knowledge and what they learn from each other, and that kind of thing. So I think that could be really helpful. They could write these sort of journals where they write their findings and hopefully show what black people can do, again, showing the haters who call black people all these names like slow, dumb, thick, lazy, and all these things that they call black people. I think you can either be a victim, or you can say, I'm going to show you what we can build. I'm going to show people in Africa, showing that we can unite and we can build things together rather than destroy things. We can work together as a team. Team Thursdays, as I said. But teams more generally. And we can achieve, similar with dyslexics, like people call us those sorts of names. So yeah, I might not be the best at reading or writing or academia, but I can achieve in other areas, which I suppose is what these videos are trying to. And me trying to work on and hopefully network with others in the future. Again, I hope to do those interviews, one-to-one interviews, pre-interviews, Zoom chats and things like that, and learn from others as well. Lazy as I am. But yeah, to solve these problems and raise awareness. But yeah, you can either be a victim or you can be a victor. You can be someone who says, excuse the expression, screw you, I'm going to show you what I can do, whatever you say about me. I'm going to use that as motivation. I was going to say cannon fodder for some reason, but I mean, a fellow dyslexic was talking about on his YouTube channel. Unfortunately, I haven't met him or I don't know him, but it'd be great to interview people like that. But he was talking about advice, and he said, I love it when people say I can't do something. He goes, oh, it gets me going. It really inspires me. And he was talking about Elon Musk, and he said he must feel great when he has those rockets going by, and people say he can't do it, and then he shows them and he can. Yeah, I think a lot of dyslexic and black people could do that kind of thing. But moving on, number 15, I'd love to know from other dyslexics as well as black people, like what your goals are out there. And I hope people will share these videos amongst each other and that kind of thing, and talk about how do you think dyslexic and triple black people could solve problems, what are the problems we solve, and working together could we take on those issues and solve those problems. Troubles, we'll say, as I say, using my silly patterns. Number 16, as I'd love to know from other people what are the best ways to support dyslexic and triple black people, and what can dyslexic and triple black people contribute to the world itself, like to benefit people in Africa and around the world, benefit each other and the rest of the world, and show haters what they can achieve. I suppose you probably won't want to benefit your haters, I guess, but I know there's a saying, bless those who curse you, but I know you won't want to benefit those who hate you and all that kind of thing and put you down. But generally speaking, it would be great if people in Africa work together and the black diaspora around the world work together. I'd love for there to be a global, worldwide tech network for black people in politics, business, tech, STEM generally, and all sorts of areas, in fact. Working together, encouraging each other, saying positive things about each other, and all sorts of things like that. But again, I'd love to know if there's things that I may have missed or overlooked or whatever that you think could also be good for raising awareness and empowering people. Number 17, another strength that dyslexic people often have is like imagination. Again, out of the box thinking, imagination. I see ideas and imaginations as different. I went to a business course when I was interested in business, and the person asked about my strengths, and I said, I think I have good ideas and a vivid imagination or strong imagination or whatever, or an imagination. And he said, aren't they the same things? And I think they're different. Like, you could have an idea that, I know people say ideas are a dime a dozen or whatever, you have to act on them, but you could have an idea that could potentially make you one of the richest people in the world or the richest person or whatever. But you could, I think the imagination is different. It's seeing yourself doing that. But yeah, I think there's a difference. I'm struggling to explain it or whatever. But I'd love to know what you think again, whether you agree with me or disagree with me. But yeah, dyslexia and imagination, I think that can solve problems. Einstein apparently said imagination is more important. Imagination is more important than knowledge. And knowledge has limits, and imagination can go on. And as dyslexics, we can see all sorts of possibilities. I love to make films where, like, if you've seen some films, it gives alternative endings, and I think like there could be different ways, not just the ending, but even the film itself could go, all the different sort of routes it could go in a story. And I'd love to network with my fellow dyslexics in making films and all sorts of things like that, putting our imagination into practice, making use of that kind of thing. I'm getting to a point more quickly though, but I'm sure black people can be storytellers and use their imagination, of course, as well. And again, some black people also have dyslexia as well, and different experiences they can put in their stories. Again, reclaiming narratives and that kind of thing, getting to tell their story and that kind of thing. But I was thinking also about the education system. Again, the education system, the academic system. Again, I do think it's important in some ways for some people. But if you are good at exams, I think you should stick to what you're good at and your strengths. You could be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. But if you are dyslexic and you don't get good grades, I don't think you should let that put you down too much. I regret allowing myself to be defined by my grades personally, although I know I haven't achieved much. But yeah, I would have probably started a business from a young age and made plenty of mistakes and failed. Academics were going mad for that one. But at the same time, that's how I would learn, I'm sure. I think you learn from copying, imitation, trial and error, asking questions and things like that. All the things that parents, schools, teachers, and wider society tell you not to do. Someone actually said business is the opposite to what you do at school. I don't know if I'd agree with that, but I suppose they'd know more than me. But I'm not sure if it's exactly the opposite, but there's a lot of things that are very different. So yeah, I think there's a lot of dyslexics who are good business people, and you don't have to be the best academically. In fact, many of the best business people are probably not the best academically, apparently, as they say. Yeah, I think if we work together, we'll be part of a great team. I'm sure we could achieve a lot. I do struggle to sort of be really positive and say, yeah, I'm gonna like. I was thinking about investing in May, and I couldn't really bring myself to say, oh yeah, I'm going to invest. when I'm thinking like in November, I want to say, yeah, we're definitely going to learn how to invest and things like that, or I'm going to take a few risks and hopefully learn along the way. But yeah, there's still part of me that's holding back and being nervous or shy about it. But yeah, doing things differently. So if we want the same results, we should probably do things about the same, and over time with compound interest. It's a big word for me, which apparently Warren Buffett talks about. They'll probably get worse instead of staying the same. So Einstein also said, if you do the same things over and over again and expect different results, you're mad. But I think it's more stupidity in a way. But actually, I mean, if you kept banging your head against a wall, heaven forbid, please don't do that. But if you did, eventually you would get worse. Like the first time you banged it would hurt a lot, I'm sure, rather you than me. But if you did it over 20 times or something, if you're still alive, you'd give yourself massive brain damage or whatever. So it would probably get worse if anything. So the reason why I mention that, I think of like things like Italian football, Celtic, the global economy, and tackling those issues I talked about, like the problems facing Italian football, problems that might face Celtic, being adaptable and that kind of thing. So if the opposition knows how you're going to play, you're too predictable and whatever. But yeah, a dyslexic person can see that creative thing. Like saying, what if we tried it this way? Or no team's done this before. Why don't we be the first to do it? But sometimes we can be a bit shy and talk ourselves out of the ideas. And I wonder how much we could unlock. Someone said to me a while back, I said, I worry about forgetting ideas or whatever. And they said, yeah, if dyslexics could utilize all our ideas, we would do amazing stuff. Like, it'd be amazing to see what we could achieve. Or words that effect. I can't remember exactly what they said. But yeah, but doing things differently, like saying, like, this is the way the economy runs, but can we do it better? Can we make things better, basically? If we do the same things, we're going to get the same sort of results. And in society, it's difficult to stand out and be different. People want you to dress a certain way and do things a certain way. And if you do anything different, if you be an outlier or an outcast or whatever, if you be an outlier, you can become an outcast or whatever. But anyway, I'm going to move on to number 18. As I say, I think it'd be cool if dyslexics said positive things about each other and believed in each other and supported each other, like helped each other out with. I feel a bit hypocritical saying this one, but if we stopped each other from smoking, drinking, taking drugs, breaking laws, in my opinion, like joining militaries, gangs, terrorism, anything that's forceful or violent or whatever, and basically help us to change and all that sort of thing, and basically help us to change our life for the better. And like if dyslexics self-harm or put ourselves down, for those who do, hopefully we'll be able to support each other to change and improve, and that kind of thing. So we'll stop each other from self-harming, putting ourselves down or whatever. Although I feel a bit hypocritical, because if I could, I'd drink Pepsi, Coke, tea, preferably before it gets cold, and other things all day if I could, pretty much, and eat chocolates and whatever. So yeah, I feel a bit hypocritical saying so. But yeah, if we say positive things about each other, I thought, like, for instance, I've seen things where people in Africa sort of slag each other off on Twitter, and sometimes it goes too far and whatever. But I was thinking they could have that humour, but I think they should also say positive things about each other. Like people from Ghana could say, yeah, we have a joke about people from Nigeria, but we also say positive things about Nigeria as well. And so African countries saying positive things about each other, and black people saying positive things about each other, and networking together and supporting and encouraging each other. 19, I also, as I said, I'm thinking of words that begin with T. I love to support dyslexic and support black people in, I said things like, I know this doesn't begin with T, but yeah, politics, business, tech, goal setting, all sorts of things. But yeah, black people in, dyslexic and support black people in programming, software development, coding, app building, app creation, AI, robotics, and all sorts of things like that. And number 20, also ICT and STEM for Africa. And any tips on how I can get to a point more quickly? But anyway, I don't have a lot of notes in the head of mine, but on that note,